Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And if you get anything from my work, a connected dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description. I got a ton of artwork going on this table and behind me. So if you're interested in anything that you see or you want something customized for you, AllyKatzkreations211 is where you can find my portfolio. Email me if you're interested and we can chit chat through email. And I want to thank everybody who has subscribed and who shares my content and gets anything from it. Today, the Urantia book, paper 71, it's doing it again. Development of the state. As we don't need to see my pores. Just don't need that. Development of the state. The state is a useful evolution of civilization. It represents society's net gain from the ravages and sufferings of war. Even statecraft is merely the accumulated technique for adjusting the competitive contest of force between the struggling tribes and nations. The modern state is the institution which survived in the long struggle for group power. Superior power eventually prevailed, and it produced a creature of fact, the state, together with the moral myth of the absolute obligation of the citizen to live and die for the state. But the state is not of divine genius. It was not even produced by volitionary, intelligent human action. It is purely an evolutionary institution and was wholly automatic in origin. The embryonic state. The state is a territorial, social, regulative organization, and the strongest, most efficient, and enduring state is composed of a single nation whose people have a common language, mores, and institutions. The early states were small and were all the result of conquest. They did not originate in voluntary associations. Many were founded by conquering nomads who would swoop down on peaceful herders or settled agriculturists to overpower and enslave them. Such states resulting from conquest were perforce. Stratified classes were inevitable, and class struggles have ever been selective. The northern tribes of America, red men, never obtained real statehood. They never progressed beyond a loose confederation of tribes, a very primitive form of state. Their nearest approach was the Iroquois Federation, but this group of 6 nations never quite functioned as a state and failed to survive because of the absence of certain essentials to modern national life, such as 1, acquirement and inheritance of private property. 2, cities plus agriculture and industry. 3, helpful domestic animals. 4, practical family organization. These red men clung to the mother family and nephew inheritance. 5, definite territory. 6, a strong executive head. 7, enslavement of captives. They either adopted or massacred them. 8, decisive conquests. The red men were too democratic. They had a good government, but it failed. Eventually, they would have evolved a state had they not permanently encountered the more advanced civilization of the white man, who was pursuing the government methods of the Greeks and the Romans. That's where our problems begin, folks. The successful Roman state was based. Pause, 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 pause. So now we see where these little species, where they are aligning with. The successful Roman state was based on successful. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are not in a political sphere, Rome never fell. It just moved over here, just like the NIZs came here. We didn't win World War II. We didn't win it because Project Paperclip brought them here. And they've infiltrated all societies. So if they're telling you that the Roman state was successful, yes, it was, because it dominated and it dominates today and it's failing us. We should be a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Democracy plus socialism equals communism. And I rather have no dictatorship than what clown circus show we're going through right now. Back to the book. Sorry, had to get that out. The Father Family. Agriculture and the domestication of animals. Condensation of population cities. Private property and land. Slavery classes of citizenship. Conquest and reorganization of weak and backward peoples. Definite territory with roads. Personal and strong rulers. I think that's where our problem is. I mean, most of this is problems, but the great weakness in Roman civilization and a factor in the ultimate collapse of the empire was the supposed liberal and advanced provision for the emancipation of the boy at 21 and the unconditional release of the girl, so that she was at liberty to marry a man of her own choosing or to go abroad in the land to become immoral. The harm to society consisted not in these reforms themselves, but rather in the sudden and extensive manner of their adoption. The collapse of Rome indicates what many and may be expected when a state undergoes too rapid extension associated with internal degeneration. The embryonic state was made possible by the decline of the blood bond in favor of territorial, and such tribal federations were usually firmly cemented by conquest, while a sovereignty that transcends all minor struggles and group differences is the characteristic of the true state. Still many classes and cases persist in the later state organizations as remnants of the clans and tribes of the former days. The later and larger territorial states had a long and bitter struggle with these smaller contiguous clan groups, and the tribal government improving a valuable transition from family to state authority. During later times, many clans grew out of trades and other industrial associations. Failure of state integration results in retrogression to restate pre-state conditions of governmental techniques, such as the feudalism of the European Middle Ages. During these dark ages, the territorial state collapsed, and there was a reversion to the small castle groups, the reappearance of the clan, and tribal stages of development. Similar semi-states even now exist in Asia and Africa, but not all of them are evolutionary reversions. Many are the embryonic nucleuses of states of the future. The evolution of representative government. Democracy. While an ideal is a product of civilization, not of evolution, go slowly. Select carefully. For the dangers of democracy are glorification of mediocrity, choice of base and ignorant rulers. We're here. Failure to recognize the basic facts of social evolution. Danger of universal suffrage in hands of uneducated and indolent majorities. Slavery to public opinion. The majority is not always right. Ha ha! Hi! Hi! We're in it to win a chicken dinner right here. Public opinion, common opinion, has always delayed society. Nevertheless, it is valuable for while retarding social evolution, it does preserve civilization. Education of public opinion is the only safe and true method of accelerating civilization. That's scary. Force is only a temporary expedient, and cultural growth will increasingly accelerate as bullets given way to ballots. Public opinions, the mores, is the basic and elemental energy in social evolution and state development, but to be a state value, it must be nonviolent in expression. The measure of the advance of society is directly determined by the degree to which public opinion can control personal behavior and state regulation through nonviolent expression. The really civilized government had arrived when public opinion was clothed with the powers of personal franchise. Popular elections may not always decide things rightly, but they represent the right way, even to do a wrong thing. Evolution does not at once produce superlative perfection, but rather comparative and advancing practical adjustment. Oh, we need a big one. There are 10 steps or stages to the evolution of practical and efficient form of representative government, and these are: 1, freedom of the person. Slavery, serfdom, and all forms of human bondage must disappear. 2, freedom of the mind. Unless a free people are educated, taught to think intelligently, and plan wisely, freedom usually does more harm than good. 3, the reign of law. Liberty can be enjoyed only when the will and whims of human rulers are replaced by legislative enactments in accordance with accepted fundamental law. 4, freedom of speech. Representative government is unthinkable without freedom of all forms of expression for human aspirations and opinions. 5, security of property. No government can long endure if it fails to provide for the right to enjoy personal property in some form. Man craves the right to use, control, bestow, sell, lease, and bequeath his personal property. 6, the right of petition. Representative government assumes the right of citizens to be heard. The privilege of petition is inherent in free citizenship. 7, the right to rule. It is not enough to be heard. The power of petition must progress to the actual management of the government. 8, universal suffrage. Representative government presupposes an intelligent, efficient, and universal electorate. The character of such a government will be determined by the character and caliber of those who compose it. As civilization progresses, suffrage, while remaining universal for both sexes, will be efficiently modified, regrouped, and otherwise differentiated. 9, control of public servants. No civil government will be serviceable and effective unless the citizenry possesses and uses wise techniques of guiding and controlling office holders and public servants. 10, intelligent and trained representation. Their survival of democracy is dependent on successful representative government, and that is conditioned upon the practice of electing to public offices only those individuals who are technically trained, intellectually competent, socially loyal, and morally fit. Only by such provinces can government, goodness sakes, of the people, by the people, and for the people be preserved. As if they read our founding doctrines and documents that have been ignored. They've been ignored, by the way. Big time. Bigly. The ideals of statehood. The political or administrative form of government of little consequence provided it affords the essentials of civil progress, liberty, security, education, and social coordination. It is not what a state is, but what it does that determines the course of social evolution. And after all, no state can transcend the moral values of citizenry as exemplified in their chosen leaders. Ignorance and selfishness will ensure the downfall of even the highest type of government. Much as it is to be regretted, national egotism has been essential to social survival. The chosen people doctrine has been a prime factor in tribal welding and nation building right on down to modern times, but no state can obtain ideal levels of functioning until every form of intolerance is mastered. It is everlastingly immiscible to human progress, and intolerance is best combated by the coordination of science, commerce, play, and religion. The ideal state functions under the impulse of three mighty and coordinated drives. One, love, loyalty derived from realization of human brotherhood. Two, intelligent patriotism based on wise ideals. Three, cosmic insight interpreted in terms of planetary facts, needs, and goals. The laws of the ideal state are few in number, and they have passed out of the negativistic taboo age into the era of the positive progress of individual liberty, consequent upon enhanced self-control. The exalted state not only compels its citizens to work, but also entices them into profitable and uplifting utilization of the increasing leisure which results from toil liberation by the advancing machine age. Leisure must produce as well as consume. No society has progressed very far when it permits idleness or tolerates poverty, but poverty and dependence can never be eliminated if the defective and degenerate stocks are freely supported and permitted to reproduce without restraint. A moral society should aim to preserve the self-respect of its citizenry and afford every normal individual adequate opportunity for self-realization. Such a plan of social achievement would yield a cultural society of the highest order. Social evolution should be encouraged by governmental supervision, which exercises a minimum of regulative control. That state is best when coordinates most while governing least. The ideals of statehood must be obtained by evolution by the law of slow growth, of civic consciousness, the recognition of the obligation and privilege of social service. At first, men assumed the burdens of government as a duty following the end of the administration of political spoilsmen, but later on they seek such a ministry as a privilege, as the greatest honor. The status of any level of civilization is faithfully portrayed by the caliber of its citizens who volunteer to accept their responsibilities as statehood. In a real commonwealth, the business of governing cities and provinces is conducted by experts and is managed as just as are all other forms of economic and commercial associations of people. In advanced states, political service is esteemed as the highest devotion of citizenry. The greatest ambition of the wisest and noblest citizens is to gain this section doesn't want me to have a page open. I had this problem earlier before I started. The page would not, guys, it's like paper thin. Jeez Louise, sorry guys. The noblest citizens is to gain civil recognition, to be elected or appointed to some position of governmental trust, and such governments confer their highest honors of recognition for service upon their civil and social servants. Honors are next bestowed in the order named upon philosophers, educators, scientists, industrialists, and militarists. Parents are duly rewarded by the excellency of their children, and purely religious leaders, being ambassadors of spiritual kingdom, receive their real rewards in another world. Progressive civilization. Economics, society, and government must evolve if they are to remain. Static conditions on evolutionary world are indicative of decay. Only those institutions which move forward with the evolutionary stream persist. The progressive program of an expanding civilization embraces preservation of individual liberties, protection of the home, promotion of economic security, prevention of disease, compulsory, I can't get that word out right, education, compulsory, there we go, employment, profitable utilization of leisure, care of the unfortunate, race improvement, promotion of science and art, promotion of philosophy and wisdom, augmentation of cosmic insight, spirituality. And these progress in the arts of civilization leads directly to the realization of the highest human and divine goals of mortal endeavor, the social achievement of the brotherhood of man and the personal status of God consciousness, which becomes revealed in the supreme desire of every individual to do the will of Father in heaven. The appearance of genuine brotherhood signifies that social order has arrived in which all men delight in bearing one another's burdens. They actually desire to practice the golden rule. But such an ideal society cannot be realized when either the weak or the wicked lie in wait to take unfair and unholy advantage of those who are chiefly actuated by devotion to the service of truth, beauty, and goodness. In such a situation, only one course is practical. The golden rulers may establish a progressive society in which they live according to their ideals while maintaining an adequate defense against their benighted fellows who might seek either to exploit their pacific predilections or to destroy their advancing civilization. Idealism can never survive on an evolving planet if the idealists in each generation permit themselves to be exterminated by the baser orders of humanity. And here is the great test of idealism. Can an advanced society maintain the military preparedness which renders it secure from all attack by its war-loving neighbors, without yielding to the temptation to employ this military strength in offensive operations against other peoples for purposes of selfish gain or national aggrandizement? America, we're looking at you. National survival demands preparedness, and religious idealism alone can prevent the prostitution of preparedness into aggression. Only love, brotherhood, can prevent the strong form from oppressing the weak. Sorry, guys, my brain is all over the place right now. The evolution of competition. Competition is essential to social progress, but competition unregulated breeds violence. In current society, competition is slowly displacing war in that it determines the individual's place in industry, as well as decreasing the survival of the industries themselves. Murder and war differ in their status. Before the Moors, murder having been outlawed since the early days of society, while war has never yet been outlawed by mankind as a whole. Truth. The ideal state undertakes to regulate social conduct only enough to take violence out of the individual competition and to prevent unfairness and personal initiative. Here is a great problem in statehood. How can you guarantee peace and quiet in industry, pay the taxes to support state power, and at the same time prevent taxation from handicapping industry, and keep the state from becoming parasitical or tyrannical? We're here. Throughout the earlier ages of any world, competition is essential to progressive civilization. As the evolution of man progresses, cooperation becomes increasingly effective. In advanced civilizations, cooperation is more efficient than competition. Early man is stimulated by competition. Early evolution is characterized by the survival of the biologically fit, but later civilizations are the better promoted by intelligent cooperation, understanding, fraternity, and brotherhood, spiritually brotherhood. True competition in industry is exceedingly wasteful and highly ineffective, but no attempt to eliminate this economic lost motion should be countenanced if such adjustments entail even the slightest abrogation of any of the basic liberties of the individual. The profit motive. Present-day profit motivation economics is doomed unless profit motivates can be augmented by service motives. Ruthless competition based on narrow-minded self-interest is ultimately destructive of even those things which it seeks to maintain. Exclusive and self-serving profit motivation is incomparable with Christian ideals, much more incompatible with the teachings of Jesus. In economics, profit motivation is to service motivation what fear is to love in religion, but the profit motive must not be suddenly destroyed or removed. It keeps many otherwise slothful mortals hard at work. It is not necessary, however, that this social energy arouser be forever selfish in its objectives. The profit motive of economic activities is altogether based on wholly unworthy of an advanced order of society. Nevertheless, it is an indispensable factor throughout the earlier phases of civilization. Profit motivation must not be taken away from men until they have firmly possessed themselves of superior types of non-profit motives. For economic striving and social serving, the transcendent urges of superlative wisdom, intriguing brotherhood, and excellency of spiritual attainment. Education. The enduring state is founded on culture, dominated by ideals, and motivated by service. The purpose of education should be acquirement of skill, pursuit of wisdom, realization of selfhood, and obtainment of spiritual values. In the ideal state, education continues throughout life and philosophy and sometimes becomes the chief pursuant of its citizens. The citizens of such a commonwealth pursue wisdom as an enhancement of insight into the significance of human relations, the meanings of reality, the nobility of values, the goals of living, and the glories of cosmic destiny. Urantians should get a vision of a new and higher cultural society. Education will jump to new levels of value with the passing of the purely profit-motivated system of economics. Education has too long been logistical, militaristic, ego-exhilarating, and success-seeking. It must eventually become worldwide idealistic and self-realizing and cosmic grasping. Education recently passed from the control of the clergy to that of the lawyers and the businessmen. Eventually, it must be given over to the philosophers and the scientists. Teachers must be free beings, real leaders, to the end that philosophy, the search for wisdom, may become the chief and educational pursuant. Education is the business of living. It must continue throughout a lifetime so that mankind may gradually experience the ascending levels of mortal wisdom, which are the knowledge of things, the realization of meanings, the appreciation of values, the nobility of work, duty, the motivation of goals, morality, the love of service, character, cosmic insight, spiritual discernment. And then by means of these achievements will ascend to the mortal ultimate mind and mind attainment, God consciousness. Pause. Schools are run like jails. The kids are being fed like inmates. The accountability of, there's zero tolerance on bullying and fighting, but yet we don't see the bullies getting bashed. We see both parties getting bashed. We're seeing everything being put onto computers, which we lose, the children lose the skills of actual fine motor. It's this. kids can't even write. They can't sign their names. They can't read our founding documents because it's in cursive and it's not being taught in schools. It's a teacher sitting in a room playing a video of another teacher dictating to them a lesson when it should be the teacher involving all students and differentiating curriculum for the students who are lagging behind. Not everybody learns in the same methods and ways. We have too many children in the autistic spectrum that aren't being integrated into regular classrooms because their behavior. Well, let's figure out how to fine tune that. We're not investigating spirituality because everybody's fine focused on religion in the classrooms. They're focused in the wrong ways. I should go to school to learn a skill, to learn life, not to know whose pronouns are this person's pronouns, and that person is using that bathroom because they identify as something other than a norm. This is what's being focused on in education, which I think is abysmal. And that's where really the problem is systemic. It's an overthrow of what logic and reason should be. It's ideology being narrated and steered at young sponges of minds that aren't being inquisitive, that their queries be shut down, that they're investigating hypothesis of whatever is going on in the world, they can't question, because if it's not about everybody else's feelings, they don't have their own. They're against the fold. And when we limit children, especially children, even adults, in critical thinking, and if they have a differing opinion, instead of knocking it down, you listen. You might not agree with it, but you don't have to smear them. You don't have to correct them either. Sometimes people just need to project. But if they're not able to, because your freedom of speech and your opinions are being shut down because it doesn't go with the fold, there is lying the problem. And we've seen this in the last couple of years really amplify greater than we should have ever seen. People getting shut down their channels because their content is controversial, because we have fact checkers. I'm sorry, am I not allowed to have an opinion? Am I not allowed to question, use a scientific method to question society? Don't people have their own ways of thinking that maybe they don't need to agree with me, and that's okay as long as I'm doing it in a respectful manner? Yeah, like the ideal world will eventually come when we all can unify, but in the meantime, like, these are the things that we would love for our children to learn, but we got to do in the house. And most people are not home because you can't provide for anything right now. You need 5 jobs just to live. The characteristic of statehood. The only sacred feature of any human government is the division of statehood into the 3 domains of executive, legislative, and judicial functions, which are all failing us, by the way, at the moment. The universe is administered in accordance with such a plan of segregation of functions and authority. Aside from this divine concept of effective social regulation or civil government, it matters little what form of state a people may elect to have provide the citizenry is ever progressively toward the goal of augmented self-control and increased social service. The intellectual keenness, economic wisdom, social cleverness, and moral stamina of a people are all faithfully reflected in statehood. The evolution of statehood entails progress from level to level as follows: the creation of a 3-fold government of executive, legislative, and judicial branches, the freedom of social, political, and religious activities, the abolition of all forms of slavery and human bondage, the ability of the citizenry to control the levying of taxes, the establishment of universal education learning extended from the cradle to the grave, the proper adjustment between local and national governments, the fostering of science and the conquest of disease, the due recognition of sex equality, of the coordinated functioning of men and women in the home, school, and church, with specialized service of women in industry and government, the elimination of toiling slavery by machine invention and the subsequent mastery of the machine age, the conquest of dialects, the triumph of universal language, the ending of war, international adjudication of national and racial differences by continental courts of nations presided over by a supreme planetary tribunal automatically recruited from the periodically retiring heads of the conventional courts. The conventional courts are authoritative. The world court is advisory moral. The worldwide vogue of the pursuit of wisdom, the exhilaration of philosophy, the evolution of a world religion, which will precede the entrance of the planet upon the earlier phases of settlement in light and life. These are the prerequisites of progressive government and the earmarks of ideal statehood. Urantia is far from that realization of these exalted ideals, but the civilized races have made a beginning. Mankind is on the march toward higher evolutionary destinies. Sponsored by a Melchizedek of Nebadon. Yeah, we're in the wrong direction. And in this moment in time, regardless of what side you are on politically, because it really does stem a lot from the back and forth, the coin is the same. The coin is the same. You have a heads and a tails. It's the same coin. When we can come to agree that things are fucked up in our world and that things need to change, and we need to meet both ways in the middle in order for that change to happen, we need change. We need to stop and think about what is being indoctrinated into the society. We need to really stop to think that other people have differing opinions than us. And where does the lunacy stop? We have to ask ourselves, you know, I just moved here. My taxes, my property tax, even though I own my house, supposedly, I don't in reality, but I bought my house and the property tax escalated 3 times within a year. When I looked at that amount of money that I budgeted and say, oh, I'm going to be okay. This should be fine. I can afford this. Note that until I start working a matrix job, this is what I'm doing. I'm not making anything from it. I don't have income. So when I receive a bill that is 3 times the amount that I paid in 1 year when I moved here, it's scary. When your bills unexpectedly go up and there's nothing you could do about it, you got to pay it if you want heat, if you want your electric on. 3 times the amount that I was paying when I first moved into the house, and I'm only here a year. That's scary. When everything goes up, and there's not, you voice your opinion, it's just an opinion, and people don't take it. So how do we move forward in society? I'm not the only one being affected like this. Everybody's being affected like this. What do you do? How do we work together to stop the insanity? Because it doesn't matter what political agenda you ascribe to. It's what is right for humanity. And I think more people are consciously being aware by how expensive things have gotten, how the educational system is failing our children. Even college. You're paying for your education at this point, and you're getting indoctrinated by radicalism. If you want to learn and be a part of a society that's different from normal things, that's fine. If you are representing yourself and identifying yourself differently from society, that's fine. But don't impose your ideals on anybody but yourself. Like the church, like religion, like anything. I don't impose my spirituality in the ways I think. I express it. And if you want to view it, great. If not, that's fine too. I don't need someone knocking on my door to tell me I'm going to hell if I don't praise Jesus. Jesus is within me. The God consciousness is here. We don't need to spew our own belief systems on anybody. We all need to come into a common sense place that schools should not be run like jails. Jails need more humane ways of dealing with people who are unfortunately mentally ill or just not empathetic. We need to introduce different modes and methods in how we are educated, how we are going about society. And I know that people are working on that right now. We need to make sure that when things do go down, that we are all there to put the pieces to the puzzle back together in a better light. The book isn't necessarily wrong. It's projecting and telling us what is in our world right now, even though this was written in the 50s. It's the same shit. We didn't really move the needle that much. Yeah, technology got advanced and we rely on it way too much instead of relying on our brain. People want speed typers, not somebody that can actually physically write a letter. People can't even sign their names in cursive. Kids today are very highly dependent on technology, and when it's not at their grasp, they flip out because they don't know how to be bored. They don't know how to just sit still and be. Instant gratification is something that needs to be really looked at and analyzed. If you can't sit and be in silence, you're being taught not how to meditate and how to go within and do your inner work. We're not teaching children to go inside to know why they feel the way they feel. We're not teaching anybody really how to actually go in and do the work inside. Many of us now are starting to project that out into society. It's been slow drips here and there, but people are not even willing to do the work because it requires to going through the pain and the suffering, and it requires questioning themselves. We're so afraid of judging and being judged that we don't do the work. And it's really sad. But that's my rant for today. I hope you guys enjoyed paper 71. Next time, we're going to read paper 72, Government on a Neighboring Planet. And yes, our planets are habitated in different densities and dimensional spaces with beings and species. Some are here to help and some aren't. Either way, it's all a part of source, and we have to accept all things as such and be Neo and get the hell out of the Matrix. So guys, sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, protection, and shielding energy. Please go within. Be the shoulder for somebody today. Be the lighthouse. Seed your truths and try to make the best out of each and every moment of your life. And until the next time, guys, have a great one. Bye for now.